I have a big problem. Well, actually I have 3 problems. 1 big and 2 small. Let's start with the smallest problem.
It's been over a month since I made the last YouTube video and I kinda broken my own promise of uploading regularly.
Now, it's not like I was expecting to make 2 videos per week or anything, but I told myself that I would try to make at least 2 or 3 videos per month. But the reason I haven't made a new video is because of the second problem that I'm having. I haven't worked on anything game development related in a long time, so I just haven't had any content for my videos. Now I can kind of forgive myself for that though, because I did go back to Sweden for Christmas.
I don't know if you can notice, but I am back in Sweden.
And then I went on a trip to Morocco. So I guess it's not really that strange that I haven't done a lot of work recently, but here's the real problem.
The camera, or rather the cameras. Because of the mix of 2D and 3D that this game has, I need 2 cameras. One that renders the background, which is mostly made up of 3D objects, and another that renders the foreground 2D objects, in other words the characters, as well as all of the UI objects. One reason I didn't render everything with one camera was because the characters would disappear into the ground when they were rotated far enough. I'm sure some shader could have solved that problem, but I've never gotten around to learning anything about shaders, and besides, that would still have been an issue because I needed one camera to render in perspective mode and another to render in orthographic mode so that the 2D elements were perfectly lined up with the camera instead of being seen as planes in a 3D space. So that's the solution that I've used up until now, but it has one big problem. I can't move the camera back and forward or up and down or even rotate it because that would completely mess up the 2D camera. I would have to scale the 2D camera depending on how the 3D camera was moving, and that is just too much work. So after not having worked on the game for about a month, I come back, and the fact that I'm stuck with the camera that can only move left and right is really bugging me.
Dynamic camera movement is so important in games because it makes you feel like you're a part of the game world, as opposed to being someone who's just observing from the same static position all the time.
Obviously this depends on the kind of game, but for Gladi Hoppers I really want to use camera movement as a way to intensify the action. I'm not yet sure how I'm gonna do it because I've never really done this before, but as a start I'm at least going to give myself the possibility to try to do it. So the solution is actually very simple, but it includes a compromise. I set the camera rendering the 2D objects to perspective mode, but the compromise here is that the field of view can't be very wide because that would make the 2D objects look weird, as I mentioned before. This still happens with a narrow field of view, but it's only noticeable in the corners, and I don't think it's really that big of a deal. At least now I'm able to move the camera around freely. I can zoom in and out without having to come up with a complex function that would adjust the orthographic camera scale according to the movement of the perspective camera. So yeah, it's a compromise and I'm okay with that.
Alright, so it's time for me to just head down and eat some lunch because I'm getting a bit hungry. The best thing about living in Italy is that the winters are kind of like Swedish springs, so unless it's raining outside, sitting on the balcony and having lunch is always an option. Back to work.
Okay, so the question remains, how can I make the camera more interesting than what I have right now? Well, my idea is to, as a start, make sure that the camera isn't just positioned in the middle between the 2 characters. Instead, I'm going to offset the camera slightly so that the player is always a bit to the right of the center. Then, depending on the distance between the 2 characters, I will move the camera towards or away from the action. It's a very basic camera script. All I'm doing is getting the distance between the characters, then I offset the X position of the camera slightly, placing it closer to the player. I move it up and away from the characters the farther the distance is between them, and finally I rotate the camera down towards the ground if it's been moving up in the air. So this is the base functionality of the camera that I want to build upon in the coming days and weeks. I'm definitely going to make some adjustments, but I might actually not change it too much because my priority is still to finish this game as soon as possible and not to complicate things.
Okay, so that is it for me for this video. Let me know what you think about videos like this, if there's something I can improve on or if there's something I can do differently. I definitely think that I should include more game development content, but it's a bit difficult to record everything because what I do mostly is trial and error. But yeah, that's something I'm gonna try to work on for the next video. Also, if you're a game developer or you're interested in game development, definitely reach out to me. You can find me here on YouTube, on Twitter, on Instagram, all the links are in the description. I would love to hear from you because I'm very lonely.
Hello? Hello?
Hello there.